Nice to finally meet you. So we had talked earlier when we had brought your course on into the vault. I don't know if you remember that. So
I
gotten a
do.
lot of good feedback on that. Super excited to have that as part of our educational resources. Um, so we'll go ahead and dive in. We got some people coming in. We are live streaming to our group, so there will be nobody in the Zoom. But let's start off. I'll do a little bit of introduction of what I know about you, and then we're definitely going to get into it. So if anybody is tuning in, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I always say you're the man that broke Google's algorithm with your test. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, it made quite a bit of noise in the SEO community with what you were able to do, and I'm super excited to get more into that. Why don't you go ahead and start off a little bit and just tell us a little bit about you, how long you've been doing SEO, a little bit about your agency. I know you have a lot going on. You have PageOptimizer Pro. Go ahead and give us the Kyle Roof spiel.
Sure. Okay, the 30-second elevator pitch. So I'm the lead SEO for High Voltage SEO. We have offices in Phoenix, Berlin, and Melbourne. We do local to national to international to e-com, to everything in between. I'm the inventor and co-creator of PageOptimizer Pro, which is an on-page SEO tool. Really, the idea is you put in your page, your competitors, and then we have an algorithm that I created that we find edges. You know, how you can get an edge on your competitors, not just like parity or kind of best practices, but how you can actually kind of get an edge with your on-page. You alluded to the SEO Signals Lab competition. I guess that was a little later. I started doing SEO in 2012, 2013. I initially, in a previous life, I'm a lawyer. I'm a trial attorney. And nice. I got really burnt out after about 4 years, and I did what I think most people do. I quit my job and I moved to South Korea and started teaching English. And the plan was just to do that for a year. And that 1 year turned into 5. And while I was there, I started a business, and we needed a website, and it was actually a pretty complex website. And it took a long time to find a group of developers that could actually do it. And then I realized, I was like, hey, I've got these guys that are really talented. Why don't I just start like general contracting websites? Mm-hmm. And so that seemed like the right thing to do. And from there, then I got the idea. I was like, you know what? We built these websites and these people like us. We could probably do this new thing called SEO. And we can get monthly recurring subscriptions out of them. And so I kind of got into the SEO game. Then we moved to India because we got that bright idea. Mm-hmm. Then we got raided by the police and the business was shut down, which was a lot of fun. I got my brother thrown in jail in India. Wow. And he really appreciates me for that. But he's a developer. He does web design and development. And basically we were hemorrhaging clients. And he goes, oh, I can take these 4 and do that. And I don't code. And we had just started doing SEO. And I was like, well, I guess I'll take the SEO guys because I need to pay the rent next month. And I had to learn SEO basically that day. And that's what I did. Kind of a trial by fire and a necessity. And then it turns out I wasn't half bad at it. And a few twists and turns later, now we're here with the agency and the tool.
And you're in Thailand, right? You're with Matt Diggity over in Thailand, correct?
Yeah. My wife and I and our little guy, we moved about 6 months ago.
Are you guys involved at all in business, the two of you? I know he's a pretty big name in SEO as well, or it's just you guys happen to live in the same area?
No, we're friends. We're not just professional friends, but friends. And but it's nice. So we live in Chiang Mai, which is kind of all the way up in Thailand. And it turns out it's a real hub for SEO. You can't throw a rock without hitting a pretty high level SEO, affiliate marketer, or just some form of digital marketing. In this area, it's remarkable. The level of talent that's here and the level of success. And it's really nice being around successful people. And also that it's a community that shares. So like we do a weekly meetup and there are quarterly meetups and stuff like that. They're really, really nice. And then, so we're actually all down in Koh Samui. So I'm in Koh Samui, which is an island in the south. All of Chiang Mai packed up, and we're all down here. And we're actually doing our Thursday meetup today. The regular Chiang Mai meetup we're doing down here in Koh Samui, which is pretty funny.
Yeah, and you said you're a lawyer by trade, so you have your law degree. Do you
I
keep
do.
your certifications up and all that stuff?
I am licensed in Virginia. They have this thing called an associate member where I don't have to take CLEs, which are the continuing legal education. But if I wanted to practice again, I could do it tomorrow.
Wow, that's interesting. That's good
I
for
don't.
you.
It's the kind of thing. It's not easy to get, so I didn't
Yeah,
want to
you
just
don't
let
want to
it
lose it. No, for sure. Well, let's jump
Is
into
it
that. Go ahead.
is it a specific type of law, or is it?
For law, no. They're only like patent law requires something a little bit extra, but after that, you can be any type of lawyer you want to be.
Does it
The
help
trick-
with your career right now?
tremendously. Digital marketing and SEO is problem solving, and the analytical thinking that I think you get from a law degree is tremendous. And being able to kind of sit through and sort through the problem and compartmentalize it in a certain way to find the answer you're looking for. And then, searching on Google is research, and that's 98% of being a lawyer is being able to do good research, and that's been remarkably beneficial. So yeah, I think
awesome.
being a lawyer, I think, has been excellent. And then being an attorney, like a trial attorney, when when the other side has an argument and you're like, that was a great argument, I agree with them. You're really not allowed to say that, you have to, something has to come out of your mouth that's coherent and kind of is on the side with your person. So that's really helped me in all the public speaking that I do and all that as well.
Let's get into so there's the thing I've been saying about breaking Google. There was Stephen Kang, who's the founder of SEO Signals Lab, which is a pretty big SEO group. He put out and you can correct me if I'm wrong because you obviously know much more than I do, but he basically put out a challenge. Tell us a little bit about the challenge, what it all included, and then tell us basically what you did, which I think even like Google, tell us what you did, the results of it, and then kind of what happened within the Google world and because if I'm not mistaken, they had to like tweak and change their algorithms based off of what you were able to detect and like show as holes in their ranking system.
So SEO Signals Lab, and this was 2018, there was a competition to rank for rhinoplasty Plano. So rhinoplasty is a nose job, and Plano is right outside of Dallas, Texas. You had 30 days. So it's a sprint, and you had to have a brand new domain, so fresh domain, so you couldn't have anything that you've done anything to. After that, it was no holds barred. I mean, you could do whatever you wanted to do, whatever techniques you liked, and then the idea was that the person that ranked at the highest at the end won. So my team and I, we decided to enter. Well, I like, team, you're coming with me, but we decided to go for it, and I think 27 professionals, or at least people that think highly of themselves, entered. At the end of the month, only 7 had a page that indexed at all. In the end, we technically took 5th. The guy that won, he was sitting around like 82 for the term, and we were like 95 or 97, something like that. A little bit of volatility. But about 2 weeks later, our site went to page 1, number 7 organic and number 1 in the maps. 2 weeks after that, we went to number 1 organic, and we actually wiped out the maps, and we were the knowledge panel. So we were rhinoplasty Plano, which is pretty funny. And at that point, people really started to lose their minds a bit. And the reason is that we built the site in lorem ipsum.
Which, for those that don't know, is basically pig Latin content that comes on a fresh site.
When you if you're looking at you're getting your site developed, like a new look for your site, it's the fake text that the designers will put in, so you can see what text would look like.
Sure.
And insert it. So it's not even real Latin. But what we did is we did the math. Showing that we had our primary keyword, the rhinoplasty Plano. It's got its variations, it's got its contextual terms, and there are very specific places you need to put those terms. And we did the math on how many times you needed to do them. And so then we very crassly copied and pasted the terms into the lorem ipsum in those areas. And really with the idea of showing that, Google's algorithm is just that. It's an algorithm, and an algorithm needs math. And while Google is wildly powerful and amazing and just tremendous, it's not a human, and it can't read as a human will read, because it's going to read in terms of math. And so that's why we did that, just to kind of make that point. And then it did go a little bit better than I was anticipating, but it's something that we've done before. So I wasn't surprised, but I was surprised it did so well. But I wasn't surprised with the outcome because we've done it before. Well, things were going along just fine. And then Search Engine Journal decides to write an article on it. And man, they have some journalistic integrity, but they published my name and the site. And it was like Google ranks site in Latin, you know, and they didn't reach out to me for a comment at all. But basically they said that, and you can look this up too, by the way, it's still on their site. But they said that I did this to make fun of Google. And that's completely untrue. I did it to make fun of people that say that all you need is good content, because you don't. You do need good content to convert. Absolutely. You know, you want people to engage with your content. You want them to like what they see, and you want them to convert in the way that you want them to convert. But that's a completely different concept from ranking. And when it comes to ranking, you need to satisfy what Google needs to see.
Yep.
And so that's why I did that. So about 6 hours later, the site was de-indexed by Google, which is, I guess, fair play. But then the part that was a little uncool was that morning from about 1:15 a.m. to about 1:27 a.m., Google de-indexed 20 of my test sites. And the test sites had nothing to do with the competition site. They were just sites that I used to test the algorithm.
How did they link them together through the host? Or
you tell me. They're all on different hosts. They all had different privacy levels. My guess is just through the registrar, because they're all registered in my name. That was the common link. People were like, well, they're not allowed to do that. And I was like, okay. Well, they can do it. You have private. Like, hey, GoDaddy, who owns these? And they're like, we're not allowed to do that. And there's like a pause, like, ah, and then they're like, I'm pretty sure that's how that went down.
Have you ever? Keep going.
I was going to say though is so the thing that it wasn't fun in the moment. What I realized is it completely validated everything that I was saying. If I was talking nonsense or if I got lucky, they would have rolled their eyes and moved on. You know, like that. That's how it would have gone, but that they actually went after me punitively, you know, to punish me for this was very validating. Earlier this year, I released a course on white hat SEO, because believe it or not, I'm a white hat SEO. But I had to go back through the guidelines again, just as a refresher. And in the no list on automatically generated content, there's this rule that says, you can't have pages that don't make any sense to the reader but contain search terms. And I was like, when did that rule go into play? Because that wasn't a rule back in the day. And so I put the URL into the Wayback Machine. And you can see before the competition, that rule doesn't exist. And then 6 days after the competition was done and people could see my site, that rule exists. So they put in a brand new rule for that. And then 4 months later, punished me for the new rule. When Search Engine Journal launched the article. And what's really great about that is, you know, if I write a page that my readers don't understand, that's my fault. You know, that's Google's job isn't to help you convert. But what I realized is not only did they validate the concepts, but then they also validated this as a way to learn how Google's algorithm actually works. Sure. You know, that's the problem that they have, is that you can do this and it's a way to actually see this is how the algorithm fundamentally works. You can figure out what is or is not a ranking factor and what factors are stronger than other factors using this method. And so they completely validated not just the concept, but then the whole framework as well, and which was fantastic. You know, that to me was just perfect.
Have you ever released kind of what your findings were on how to position content and all of that? Like, have you kind of released your secrets?
Well, I mean, that's what, so within the tests that I released, but then also PageOptimizer Pro is the culmination of all of those tests. The tests that we run go into that algorithm to say, like, this is how you can get those edges. Now, these are the places that Google is looking at, and this is where you need to do this or that to get the edge.
And so I've used PageOptimizer Pro actually, and I found it to be, it's very insightful, but it almost seems like a traditional SEO would say it almost feels like it's over optimizing because it's putting it in so many times. Granted, I used it for a month or so and I'm no expert at it, but how many times did you have to put rhinoplasty plano on the actual page? And what were the key spots? You know, like some people will say it's always within the first sentence, within your H1 tag, title tags. Kind of talk to us a little bit about that.
Sure. There are groupings of importance. Your group A, your most important places to put a keyword are in your URL, your title tag, your meta title, your H1, and in paragraph text. That's been for a long time.
Yep.
You just put your keyword one time in those 4 places, you probably just did 60 to 70% of all SEO right then and there. Like that's the big secret. And that'll take care of a lot of things for you. When it comes to like what is over optimized, there's no set term. Those things vary keyword to keyword, which is the point of you have to do this analysis each time. I think for Run Up Place Plan, it was only a handful of times that it was on the page. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it could have been more than 2 or 3 within the paragraph text. Sure. But after that, it's your variations. So like your phrase match, if you will, of your primary keyword, your target keyword, and it's very, very close synonyms. Those do most of the heavy lifting. Like if you had, best purple frisbee, you're not going to repeat best purple frisbee 1,000 times. That's gross to humans to read, but then it's also not really effective for SEO. You'd really only want that page probably a handful of times, and after that, you're going to be talking about frisbees. You're talking about why this is the best, and maybe the color purple, and then different kind of phrase matches of those things. And that's a lot of what Pop will show you is the variations and how many times you need to get that on the page. Mm-hmm. But then one thing when it comes to like what it might be over optimized is that what Pop is showing is based off what your competitors are doing. The idea that your competitors are doing this, and there are times when you want to do what they are doing. That is the right thing to do. There are times you want to do a little bit more, and there are times you want to do a little bit less. Yeah. And that's what it comes to do. So like, there really isn't a standard, like if you do it like 5 times, you're over optimized. It doesn't work that way. But what I would say is that your target phrase, you probably don't need to use it as many times as you think you do. Even if you think you're not in an over optimized situation, like I only use it 3 times, you might not even need to use it 3 times. Sure. But the match terms through your variations are probably more important.
Talk to me about schema that was on that page.
I'm sorry?
Schema markup. What did you have on the page in terms of schema?
Local schema. We used local schema markup for that because we were we got an address. We got a local address, verified our GMB, and then had local SEO, local business schema on the page.
Did you
just the standard?
Any citation building, any link building?
So that was the only link building that we did. We did 2 rounds of citations, I think, through Write Local, like 20 in a batch. We did 2 of those. I did build out branded Web 2.0s. So owning your name across the web in terms of like, rhinoplasticplano.wordpress.com.
Yep.
That kind of thing. And then, but not publishing to that, but using them as a form of citations where, we put the business information, your NAP, your name, address, and phone number, and then a link back to the target page. That's what went on all those things. So we're owning that name across the web. And then we indexed those so that we would get credit for them in a short amount of time.
How many of those? How many of those did you? I refer to those as satellite sites because I'm into link building. Sure. So
it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 to 30. Your standard ones that you would do.
Okay.
But that was the sum total of the link building.
Interesting. And did you do anything like on-site optimization in terms of for your GMB with like building out content or sections of services or anything like that?
Did the categories like you normally would, filled out all the stuff with address and those sorts of things, but nothing too fancy there. We did also build out supporting articles though for the target page on our own site. Mm-hmm. So like, does it hurt to get a nose job? What's the recovery time? Those types of things that would just be kind of standard supporting article type things. But again, they were all lorem ipsum. So it was just that, phrase in English in the meta title and the H1. The rest is lorem ipsum, and then linking back to the target page, and they link to each other in a standard kind of a virtual silo where you create links between pages with body content links.
What is your biggest takeaway now? Like, could you do that again, or have they completely fixed it to where you haven't been able to re-crack it?
Yeah, the level of hate mail that I got was tremendous.
Really?
Yeah, you got lucky. They've redone Bert is here now. All these Hummingbird has increased. The new pandas. I don't know. So in 2019, 2020. Before the world went completely crazy, I did a speaking circuit, and I spoke in LA in Garden Grove, which is right next to Disneyland. I spoke in Bali, Chiang Mai SEO, Munich, and Milan, and I ranked on page 1 for each of the cities in lorem ipsum. doing the exact same thing after, like, and basically going through each of the objections that somebody had, like, you can't do it because of this, and then I did it because of that, and you can't do it because of this, and then did it because of that. And so, and most of those are actually still ranking on page 1.
Interesting.
That's awesome.
Let's talk a little bit about SEO strategy, and I guess how a lot of our group is. I would say there's some good SEOs. Like I know you know Marty Marion, he's in our group. We have quite a few that are pretty proven, and I would say do a good job. What would you rank the level of on-site versus off-site, and can you do one without the other? And kind of as you start to get into more of like e-commerce where you're going to be competitive, how important is each of those play into what you're doing?
On page will do most of your heavy lifting. If you dial in your on page, it'll reduce your dependence upon links. So I think you want to make sure you tag your on page as well as you possibly can. But then there is a place where the sidewalk ends. On page can sometimes get you to page 1 and you do quite well, and that's just all there is to it. But you might get to a point where that's it, and then you're now on page 3, page 2, wherever, and then that's where you definitely need those off page signals to make it happen. But you can do very well with off page and less on page. The thing is, I've always felt that the one thing you completely control is your own website. You don't control backlinks or what Google may or may not like when it comes to those, and they're quite fickle and very volatile. So if you're looking for a longer term play and to decrease volatility, especially when it comes to Google updates, on page is your best method. I would focus on page, and I would focus on supporting pages for my target page. That will significantly reduce the amount of volatility that you have on Google updates. And then when it comes to backlink building, I would build those into my supporting pages. And if I've set up my internal linking correctly, you're going to get the juice passing up to your target page. But again, it will decrease the volatility that you have anytime Google decides to change anything, or just things happen naturally with like link rot. You lose a link, or perhaps time happens and Google's got a timer on the amount of links you have. If you're not dependent upon that sort of a boost for your SEO, but it is complementary, if you have everything set up on your site with your on page and your supporting pages, I think you're going to do a lot better in the long run.
Okay. You had a question, Luke?
Yeah. So we have a few different types of skill level ad leagues. So like, what would be your someone starting out an agency, an SEO agency, what would be something that you would change, that you would have done differently when you started?
You're starting an agency, benchmarking, things that matter. The most important things to benchmark are the amount of keywords a page is ranking for. A page that is healthy, you've optimized and is doing well, is actually growing in the amount of keywords that it's ranking for. And you can see that within Search Console. I would measure organic impressions and organic clicks as my 3 main KPIs. Focusing in on one keyword is almost worthless because a page ranks for more than one keyword. And it's also not a bad strategy to build a page for a keyword you will never win, because you won't win that primary keyword. But if you properly optimize for a primary keyword, you will win secondary keywords. And often those keywords will drive a lot of traffic. And because they're longer phrases, they're often more buyer intent. So that somebody, if they can get to your page because of that longer phrase, they're more likely to convert. So it's even better traffic. Measuring the page's performance is something that I would start with. Something else that we did was benchmarking where we started. Usually you come into a project and the page exists for a particular phrase, and you're going to optimize that phrase, optimize that page for that particular phrase and do stuff to it. It's a really good idea to benchmark and make it very clear where that page started with the keywords it's ranking for, its impressions, its clicks, and conversions. Because if you have a flat month, clients often get into the "what have you done for me lately" kind of mentality. And if you can say like, or even we went down a little bit, but we're still 10x where we started, you get a little more grace. And it's easy for people to forget, where you came from. So I would monitor things at the page performance level. I would monitor those KPIs that are most important. And then to our reports, we have this little box and they can see exactly where we started from. So like, you had, like 10 clicks, 100 impressions, and 1 conversion when we started, and we're getting 50 conversions now. I understand that we got 55 last month, but That's still way better than where you started. So making those points a little bit clearer would be, I think, a great starting point.
What did that do for your business? All the publicity you got?
Well, it decreases churn. The biggest problem that you have is churn, where you've got a client that's like, you know what, the grass could be greener over there. That's always what they're thinking. And if you have a couple flat months, they're like, well, okay, they're spent. So you want to make sure that they understand where they were, where you got them, and that maintaining that is also still a skill as well.
Mm-hmm. I'm talking about the whole Google thing though. Did that, because of the search engine journal article and all that, did that increase?
Oh, it's kind of like when Darth Vader struck down Obi-Wan Kenobi.
I've never seen Star Wars, believe it or not.
You haven't seen Star Wars?
No, I can't watch it, man. It's so bad.
All right, I'm clicking Justin out of this call.
It made me more powerful than they could have possibly imagined.
Well, my name's Luke, so I feel like I have to watch Star Wars.
The best thing about Star Wars is the Friends episode where Ross pretends you ever watch Friends? Ross pretends she gets dressed up as Princess Leia or whatever.
Oh yeah,
I think I remember that episode. But
no, it was it was very validating, and something that I've always done is I've shown my work. So like in the tests that I run, you can see those, and so that you can replicate them, and you can try to do them yourselves, or you can debate them on what they are. And same thing with the lore maps. I showed exactly what I did. You can look at the site, it's not hidden. And with the success that brought and the transparency that this is how I do SEO, this is how it works, this is what I found, and these are the results. And, most of the people that want to get into an argument with you or me have nothing to show.
Right.
They want to talk about some feelings that they've got, or, one time, one place they did something. It's like, okay, well, can you repeat that? Or is that repeatable? I even got told that it was really unfair that I was asking for proof once with a guy, and he was like, he's like, it's really low class for you to ask me to prove what I'm saying. And I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about, man. Like, like I show all my work, and you can, and we can debate it for that, and you can not like it, and that's fine. And I've been wrong before. I promise. Been wrong thousands of times, but at least you can see the work that I'm doing, and I'm happy to have that conversation. If you've got something else, let's take a look at it, because I don't have any pride in the outcome. The end goal is to rank better. That's what it comes down to. And on top of I'm outside just the theory of it or the fun of it. I actually have clients. I'm accountable to them. Like, this has to work or they don't stay with me anymore. So not only am I just doing this for the fun, educational, theoretical value of it, but there's also a practical component as well. As I have to put this into play. This is the SEO that I'm doing for clients. So not only am I accountable or transparent in what we're doing, but I'm actually accountable for this work as well. And if somebody else is in that same position, that's a great conversation to have, because then we can learn. But a lot of people don't come from that perspective. They just see something and they're like, oh, that can't work or whatever, but they have nothing to show for it other than their feelings.
Right. Hey, Kyle, so we can go to rhinoplastyplano.com, right? Or where is a good place to find?
It's .co is what it is.
.co. And if there's a good place to find, like you said, you have a lot of your proof out there. There's a good place to find all of it. Either I can just type in the show notes, like the websites, or there's a place on your website or something?
So internetmarketing.gold is where I publish my tests. That's a paid group. There's a free group in Facebook that people can plug into just to kind of get a feel for what's there.
But how much do you not release? Like, how much do you know that, what percentage wise would you, obviously you know a lot of what to do versus what not to do, but obviously you don't want to give everything away.
The only thing I don't give away is the algorithm for pop. That's the only thing that's proprietary, but the tests that I run, I don't hold anything back. There's this pool is so big, there's so many clients, there's so many opportunities, there's so many affiliate opportunities to build your own properties and stuff like that. Even if we're going after the same keyword, there's still a lot of space. I'm not concerned about running into anybody or having any problems with that whatsoever. Because the tool we were using within the agency, I could just continue to use it and be successful there. But with that success, it was easy to bring it to market to say like, hey, this works, use it. And if it's competitive with somebody else, that's totally fine because there's so much space.
what is your thoughts on Shopify, ranking a Shopify site versus a WordPress site?
It doesn't matter.
You don't think it matters?
No, Google is CMS agnostic. I don't know that there's any CMS that has an edge on any other CMS. What it comes down to is if you're able to optimize elements. Can you get at your H tags?
You can't get to like your URL slugs. You have /product/product.
That is kind of a drag when you're in a closed system, but is that going to stop you? No. I mean, would it be nicer if you could? Yeah.
I've always said it's probably 20% harder to rank a site, 20 to 30% harder to rank a Shopify site versus a non-Shopify site without some of those high level controls, because there's just some things that are very key importance, but you can't change them because it's built into their system.
Yeah, when it comes to URL structure, the biggest problem is like having irrelevant folders and you're going deeper into a site. So like you want to keep as flat a structure as reasonable. But like nobody is searching for product, right? Usually when you've got a category, it makes sense because it's part of the search phrase or something related to it. Like the ones, right? But the ones that do like /page, right? Like that's or /post or /blog or /whatever is really, that's kind of annoying. What I think it does more than anything is it just increases the amount of time it takes. I think you can still definitely get there, but I think you can just see that through indexing times.
Yep.
If you were to launch 2 pages at the same time on relatively equal sites that are getting crawled about the same amount, if you've got .com/folder paged versus .com/page, that second one's going to index so much faster because you're not making Google work for it. So a closed system that has a URL structure that's creating irrelevant folders is just the biggest thing it's going to do is slow down your indexing.
Yeah, because Shopify, like with their blogs, for example, they use /blogs/ whatever you want to name your blog, which most just leave a default, which I think it's /blogs/news/ your article name, which, it just adds, like you said, so many deep, and there's no control over it, which I think is easy.
Yeah, you're asking Google, I mean, excuse me, friend, would you mind going deep into my website, please? Like,
yeah.
They don't
give
take
that
a
much
while.
crawl depth, you just don't get that kind of crawl depth. So,
but they'll get there eventually, especially if you're consistently putting out content, and you're on it. I mean, it'll get there eventually. But just I think it maybe slow down your indexing more than anything.
So let's say let's say I come to you and I have like an e-com site, about 4K budget. How much of that would you say you put into like link building? And are you doing all of your own link building and putting out your own content, or do you guys not do link building, only focus on site? What are like your things that you guys internally focus on versus, maybe externally, I guess?
What I'm probably going to want to do, so when you come with e-commerce sites, you have kind of 2 different types of pages. You have your product page, and then you've got kind of that longer form article page. And depending on what Google is really interested in for that particular product or keyword, it might like one or it might like the other. So what I want to make sure is we've got the opportunity to hit either of our product or a category page, for example, or a longer form piece of content. The other thing that I want to do is I want to decrease the risk that we have in being dependent upon Google liking what we're doing at the time. And the way to do that is through supporting content. I really want to get a lot of content on the site. Larger sites are less volatile. Larger sites that are contextually and topically relevant are less volatile. The other thing you can do too is if you're going after longer phrased terms, those can rank quite quickly and start to trickle in traffic while you're doing other things that are longer term plays. So you can actually start to get some sales. You can start to get some wins. Well, what you notice is if you launch, 10 pieces of content and they all get 10 clicks, that's 100 clicks. There's probably a sale in there because you probably can convert about 1% of that on your site, and they're going to rank quickly. So, and what you'll find is as you start to do that, like all boats start to rise on your site, and then you niche edit your own site to create an internal linking structure on those ones that are most successful to link into your target pages, and then you're passing your own link equity, your own topical relevance, and you're building out a much stronger site. After that, then I'll start looking at building links into those pages, and I really want to build them into my well-performing supporting pages more so than my target pages. really just from a practical standpoint, if you're selling a product and you ask somebody to link to them, they're going to tell you to pound sand. I mean, who links to a product that I'm selling this, will you link to me? But if you have something that provides a lot of value, that actually has the opportunity to get a link organically. And that's what you want. That's the ideal, is that it's something that could generate actual links. The other thing you run into is that sometimes links are toxic through no fault of your own. Yeah. But if you're focusing on bringing them into those other pages, worst case scenario, you can burn down a supporting page much faster than you can burn down, or would want to burn down, a target, a money page. So that's what I would do first. I'd try to look at ways to make sure that we're covering all of our bases and what Google might want to rank for our particular keywords. I'm going to build out supporting content to bring in good traffic, low risk traffic that's also then going to increase the size of the site appropriately. And then after that, I'm going to start looking at links mostly into those supporting pages to then, again, build up the relative strength of those, which will then pass to my target pages.
Cool. And do you guys use, I mean, I'm sure you know of SENuke or GSA. Do you use any, like, do you do tiered link building and use anything like when you get to tier 3, 4, 5, like far away enough? Are you using?
No, a lot of our clients are like banks, and you can't GSA, you can't burn down that domain. Yeah. They get a little testy.
Some say it still works. I used to use it way back in the day, but I haven't used it for years upon years. But we never used it towards like tier 0 or 1 or even tier 2. It was always like 3 and beyond.
You'd have to do it multiple, for sure. You want that. So you got your guest post, maybe build to that.
Yeah.
Well, your guest post on a very strong site.
Yeah,
is what you want to do there.
Yeah. And do you guys use? So I had actually somebody ask me today. Be interested to get your opinion. Wanted to start a Medium blog. So we put out blogs for them 2-3 times a week. Importance of like using WordPress.com and having multiple blogs, multiple satellites. Do you do anything like that? And if you do, can you use the same content as long as it's branded the same, that it's the same brand? Are you using different content? What does your strategy look like from having multiple blogs out there?
If you did that, what I would probably do is like a snippet on that site that links into the full article on my own site is the approach that I would take. We don't do too much of that. The thing that I like to do is just make sure that I own the name. You know, we own the client's name across those properties, so somebody else can't be a dick and come in and try to take it and do something with it. And then I'm really just using them as citations. Sure. Kind of putting that citation type information on them more so than using them for blogs. But if somebody wanted to do that, I would do snippets of the longer post on there and then link back to the original post is how I would do it. And then that gives you a level of tiered link building if you want to do that. That's the approach I would take.
Yeah. What do you give for like local, like how does so I've built out Data Studio reporting, you've used, keyword.com. What does your reporting look like in terms of using something custom?
We use Data Studio. Yeah. So we'll bring in Google Analytics and Search Console information into one page, and we break it down at the page level. Obviously, you'll see some site-wide data, but I want to see we optimized this page. We need to see how that page is actually doing. Sure. And that's the whole point, so we want to make sure that what we've done is successful for that, and measuring those KPIs of are we gaining search queries, are we gaining impressions, are we gaining clicks, are we getting conversions. One important note: if you have a successful page, you're going to notice that your average ranking position is going to go down, as is your CTR. And the reason is that you're casting a wider net. You're picking up more keywords. They're lower level. So as a result, it's going to bring down the overall ranking of your page for quite some time. It'll also bring down your click-through rate, and people start to freak out. And they're like, oh my God, I optimized this page, and I was at 25 for an average rank, and now I'm at whatever. But what that means, you're ranking for more keywords. So you should see those impressions going up, and you should see those clicks going up. And if those two things are going up, then you're doing great. Yep. You're actually doing really, really well because you've got a healthy page that is picking up keywords. The other thing it can do for you, though, is an update happens. What you'll often find is that if you're monitoring at the page level, you can see the terms that page lost. And then you can identify, like, is that a term that was worthwhile? Several times we found we're ranking for a whole bunch of irrelevant keywords, because you'll notice your conversions don't change. And I was like, well, our traffic went down, our impressions went down, and we lost like 10% of our keywords, but our conversions didn't move, or they even got a little bit better. Okay, we're fine. You don't have to panic about that, but but because we know what's going on those pages. But sometimes you'll see like, you know what, these are actually good terms. Then you can decide like, do we have a page for that? And we just need to optimize this page a little bit more for that particular term that we lost, or do we need new content? And then I can then set out your content schedule to kind of recapture those lost impressions and clicks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. That's what, yeah, because I always just pull like for the pages that we are actually actively working on, I'll pull just overall keyword growth and show overall keyword growth for those pages, because it just does exactly what you talked about. What are your go-to?
It's so much better than just like a single rank tracking report that says like, you know, you were at 7 and now you're at 8, and you're like, should we do something about it? Who cares?
I'll have to send you, I'll shoot you over. I have like an 80-page report I built with Data Studio. I'll send it to you. What do you think about it? It's got analytics and Search Console. You can check it out.
The thing that I think we need more are like fancy charts. We don't have good charts. I want like the really pretty looking ones.
Mm-hmm.
I think people, clients especially, big dumb animals sometimes, you know, you just need to show colors.
But most of them they don't even look at, like
pretty colors.
I spent and I built this one. I'll send it to you after the call. It was like 80 pages, and I bet you that they haven't even, like, some of the clients I built it for, they haven't looked
at one page. They look at page one, you know, and maybe the summary.
Yeah.
So your old numbers are in red. Your new numbers are green, and they're big.
Yeah. The one client was like, build me something. So I built him something. And then he's like, well, this is too much. It's like, you wanted this detailed report. Well, I want one page. It's like, well, you just have what you fucking wanted. So
no, it's a balance. I have found what's very successful is if you have that summary page with the red and the green and the chart that does this and the thing that does that, that's what they want. And then they want to see that there are 79 other pages.
Yeah.
Then they feel good about that. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like, okay, here's the summary. That's all I'm gonna read. And I know the data's there if I ever want it, but they're never gonna, you know,
right.
but that it exists is such a comforting idea. And then here's the distilled down into 4 or 5 bullet points.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of crazy.
Little do they know all that data is just lorem ipsum.
That's right. You know what? You could probably do it. Yeah. You could probably like just give the exact same report every time.
How often do you have to tweak your PageOptimizer Pro? Like how many tests are you actively running to be able to tweak your algorithms?
At any given point in time, we probably have 10 to 15 tests that are running. Not all of them though are directly related. It's just more like, are we on point with this? But then the other thing that we do too is that we live field test it as well. So we have a lot of pages that we're running in different niches and optimizing them in certain ways just to see how they're performing. You know, to make sure that we're getting, you know, like in a low competition term, if you do your on page, you should do pretty well, you know, and making sure that, you know, as we follow those instructions that we index quickly, you know, meaning that we're hitting our semantic terms, our related terms, you know, that it performs pretty well just with on page alone. Sure. That's a lot of what we do. Updates though are really good for us. When Google does an update, what's nice is that the secret is hiding in plain sight. Google shows you the new sites that it likes. And so that's what Pop does, is it analyzes those pages. And so when an update happens, we're pretty update proof in that that doesn't affect us too much.
Right.
The thing we do is we do a lot of math, like a lot of math to find, because we want we'll give a range, you know, and the constant is the answer, the right answer is somewhere within this range. If you get into this range, you're going to perform pretty well. And we do it to statistical significance. And so we run our p-values a lot to make sure that we're hitting statistical significance. And like basically the right answer is somewhere within a significant level of confidence. And that's a lot of the work that we do behind the scenes.
Now you're talking stats. I failed basic algebra 3 times.
I had no idea that my entire life would be statistics, like that, a true understanding of standard deviation, p-values, those standard error of the mean is an amazing piece of math that I had no idea existed several years ago, and it's become pretty much a daily part of my life.
Yeah, you're talking math, and I absolutely hate it. I did horrible at it.
So. I didn't think I liked math. I mean, I thought I was fine at it, but I'm not good at school math. Mm-hmm. You know, like if you were to like, we need you to cosine this tangent over here, like I don't know. I don't know anything about that, but now when it comes down to like probability and statistics and stuff like that, that's actually a lot of fun. You can teach yourself it too.
Yeah.
We're I know we don't have much time yet, but
15 minutes.
about
Or
to
when
be a
we
good
have a hard
thing.
stop, Kyle. We're gonna go till 9 if that's good for you.
No, it's my 8 a.m. So
Well, you're an early
yeah,
rise.
I got all the time in the world.
There
And actually, I
you
think I'm
go.
going to round up to the weekend after this anyway. So
There you go, man.
start having some beers.
Would you? There you go. Would you want to talk about the future of SEO, like kind of what you
SEO's
think
dead.
is going to happen?
SEO's
SEO's
dead.
Oh man, it's died. It's died so many times. As long as it is not a manually curated index, where an actual group of humans is choosing what should rank, there will always be optimization. Same thing with Facebook ads, any kind of PPC. As long as there's an auction that is looking at certain areas that you can optimize, as long as it's not a human doing it, there will always be SEO, and there will always be ways to improve your PPC. That is the future. So as long as it's not a human being doing it, we're good. Even if it's a very fancy AI, that's fine, because that is not a human, and it can get close probably, but it will still rely on math. It will still rely on things that can be optimized. So right. That to me, I'm not too concerned. Or like was it the new text that's coming out written by AI, this or that? That to me looks like Spinner Chief from 2012. Like it's not too much better. So what I still think there's room.
AI what?
Like the AI written content that people are. GPT-3 stuff. I think humans will still be necessary for a while, but optimization will be there for a while. One other thing that I think it is an important point is that the stuff that changes in Google's algorithm is usually the stuff on the fringe. In a bell curve, if you've got like 70-80%, it's the 10 to 15% on each side where people are trying to game something. That's usually where they're targeting, and there is some carnage, and it's unfair. It'll tag a site that's doing it legitimately, but by and large, that's what they're trying to get. The stuff in the middle stays relatively the same. And the thing I teach people, or really highly recommend, is don't overthink it. Do the basics first before you get into any kind of fancy technique. Don't try to outthink Google. Just give it what it needs. Get fancy later. So kind of start with the basics, get there, and then go.
Have you how have you seen it evolve over? Because how long have you been doing SEO? When did you say?
It's about 2012.
2012. How much has your strategy changed in terms of on-site, off-page versus on-site? Like,
I've gotten more sophisticated in terms of the content that I produce for the site, and what I'm actually trying to get indexed for the site. That's been I used to really just think about in terms of one page. We've got this page, let's get that page optimized and ranked. But there's actually a lot more to it with the content strategy you're going to have and what you're going to put out for the site. Most recently, I've been Avalanche Theory from Chris Carter. I highly recommend looking at that. You can go to Builder Society and look up Avalanche Theory, and it actually really well articulates a lot of what I do. And it's a method of finding what your site is, the strength of your site. Like, instead of using my site's a DA20, I don't even know what that means, but it's a way to categorize how strong your site is by the traffic you're receiving, and the traffic you naturally receive. And so I've been doing a lot of testing with that, and that's been a lot of fun. And it's a better metric, I think, than just some arbitrary number. Not to take away from those arbitrary, they're great, but I think it's a little more useful to look at things in terms of traffic, because that's really the end result is traffic, and it's a little bit harder to manipulate your traffic than it is some sort of metric from another tool.
Sure, that makes sense. What are your go-to tools? SEMrush, Ahrefs, obviously PageOptimizer Pro.
Yeah, pop and only pop. That's all we use.
What do you use for research?
We use SEMrush primarily. Yep. It has enough tools in there that we kind of consolidated a lot of tools into SEMrush, basically. We did it primarily like March 2020 2020 when we were like, we got to get lean, like, are we going to lose clients? What's going to happen with this COVID thing? So like, our software budget went from about $4,000 to about $2,000 a month. Really trimming down a lot of like, well, you know what, we have this and it does do this and we do like that, but we can approximate this with this other tool.
Yeah.
And SEMrush kind of covered a lot of that for us. And then Quora is another tool.
I was just going to ask what the name of it was. I couldn't remember. I've used that one, and that one's a pain in the butt to use.
You need to like spreadsheets, and you need to like them a lot. Ted is a great friend of mine, but I think he looks at that complexity as a feature. But what we do is we start with Pop, and Pop has a content brief, and we start with that, and kind of then on the next run, we're going to look at more advanced strategies in Pop and Quora. And Quora has this thing called Best of Both by Page. That's the only column you need to worry about, because Quora runs statistical analysis on like 2,000 some odd factors, and then it uses two different statistical methods, and Best of Both is where they both agree. Mm-hmm. And so you can get a list of like 20 things. Some of them are very low hanging fruit, and in the statistical model, they're moving the needle. Tag those. You get them done in like 10, 15 minutes, and then don't worry about the rest, and you probably get a bit of an edge.
Yep. Yeah, I found that to be extremely difficult. That's when we were testing both, and we settled with PageOptimizer Pro. It's just so much easier to use the interface, versus using what they give you. And it was, I think, their stuff's super expensive. It's very expensive.
I think, Quora's around $250 a month, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What do you?
I'm sorry.
Sorry to butt in. We got a question from Marty Marion. I know we're coming up pretty soon on an hour here. But he asked, what do you think about the story that Google is considering curating or editing search queries?
I haven't seen that. I'd be stunned. I mean, so the only people that complain about Google results are SEOs. Humans that go and use are happy. The reason that they go there is because they're liking the results that they're getting. For Google to do something like that would be so expensive. If they're doing human curation, it'd be so expensive for them to do when they've already got a system that people like. So I always think of it in terms of what will cost them the least amount to maintain the results that they're getting that people are happy with. So I would be surprised if they go to any kind of human curation just on a cost. I mean, they'd have to have a whole data center for that of humans, and that's so expensive to do. And then you have to pay them.
Yeah, I know that they had talked about that with some of the, election stuff, that there was some, obviously there was kind of like what obviously an article comes out and then your stuff's all this de-indexed and the listings were manipulated. I'm sure there's some of it that goes on, but only to a certain extent.
I could see it in very specific situations, perhaps like that, or like they see some really unusual activity, but that's what a manual review is, right? So they see unusual activity, your site gets flagged, and then a human will take a look. I could see that, but as a across the board sort of thing, it seems very cost prohibitive.
Yeah. Have you ever had a site manually besides the Lorem Ipsum, but like, have you ever been?
No, just those sites. Yeah. Those are the only ones that ever got slapped.
Never seen any manual penalties before.
Then, so there were two. So the rhinoplasty plano got pure spam is what it was called. Is the penalty, pure spam. And then all the test sites, they were labeled as major spam issues. But I really like that the rhinoplasty was just pure spam, like F you. So on the test sites, so the major spam issues. So what I did is I I submitted reconsideration requests. So I took the page completely down, so all the stuff that was on that page, and then it was just the like WordPress 2010 or something like that, and I sent it back up, and it came back rejected. So then I took just one page. It was one page site, and I just stream of consciousness. I was like, this is unique content because I'm thinking of it as I'm typing it, and this is the only thing that exists on this entire site is just this one page, and resubmitted that, and they rejected it again. Which was awesome because I mean that completely showed it was completely punitive. There wasn't just like, oh, you violated this, but it was like we're taking this down, and you may not have it back.
And you are speaking because you speak at a lot of the conferences too, correct? If I'm not mistaken.
I try. Yeah.
Which ones do you have coming up?
I don't know if I have anything booked. So I just did SEO Con Jakarta. That was last week before. And I did SEO Mastery Summit the end of last year, beginning of this year. And that's Mad Singers Conference. I did Data Natives Unlimited. I was a panelist on that earlier this year. But I don't know if I have any,
Nothing.
think about it. I don't think I've got anything major booked just yet coming up. Things will come up. They always do.
Yeah, and and also hasn't been any conferences really because of all of the.
So I've noticed that a couple of conferences, like in the November, December range, it looks like they're trying to go live for a lot of those conferences.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be interesting.
Yeah, it seems like it's starting to finally come around, but it's still hanging in there. So
yeah.
In terms of agency, are you guys only doing SEO? Do you guys do anything else, or primarily focus on SEO?
We do offer. I mean, we are full service, so we'll do Facebook and PP AdWords, stuff like that, other PPC type things. But that's not our forward-facing product.
Sure.
And usually with the companies that we're dealing with now, they've already got that team. You know, they actually already have like their in-house digital marketing or SEO team anyway, and they're looking for a consultant to come in and then also fulfill certain things that are just difficult to do in-house, like, you know, produce content en masse and that sort of thing. So that's a lot of the companies that we're working with now kind of already have those teams already, and they're not looking for a complete specialist. They want an SEO agency, and so that's kind of how we've framed ourselves now.
Do you do anything with? So I know Matt. I followed Matt for quite a while. I know he's really big into Pbns and stuff. Do you guys do anything with Pbns at all, or how does your outreach look like?
I mean, the way to stay white hat is that you have to acknowledge that it's advertisement. If you have acknowledged that you have purchased an ad, that is white hat, because the standard is editorial review. Mm-hmm. You know, the concept is you had a website, you saw my site, you think it's good, and you wrote a piece of content and linked to it. That's editorial review. You've reviewed that content and you're like, yeah, this is what we want to do. Yep. Something that doesn't have editorial review is a paid placement. And that's where people kind of run into trouble is in the buying the links. But if you are explicit that this is an advertisement, you know, and native advertisement is advertisement that's supposed to look natural, but is not. So long as you're explicit that you have purchased this link, you purchased this placement on this site, you know, that because it's an ad, then you're completely allowed to do that. It's fine. I don't like PB. I'm sorry.
Most people aren't with link building though, you know.
Right. But it's so easy to get within a white hat realm just through acknowledging what people understand what it is anyway. Yeah. The reason I would avoid a PBN is just because they are doing that. They're selling those things in mass, and they're not careful with attribution. And so I don't want to get involved with that, but I'm not necessarily against PBN so long as you have the right attribution for what you're doing. And if you're saying that this is a site that's just for ads, there's nothing wrong with that. And you're completely fine, but they don't do that because they're trying to be sneaky, right?
Yeah.
It's one of those things that's like, why lie when the truth would suffice? You know, just be honest with what you're doing, and you actually then fall into what is correct. I mean, you're allowed to have a site that's just all ads.
Yep.
That's allowed. And so if people will just kind of think of it in those terms, I think you do a lot better and you'd be safer.
And it's hard, you know, like Matt's stuff. I still think he owns his link building thing, doesn't he? I forget the name.
Yeah, Authority Builders. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, some of that stuff they get to be so good. The only real way to tell is if you start going and looking at the social properties and look for pictures, and like if you actually DM and you don't get a response. But anymore, PBNs are getting to be so hard to even spot. You know, even a good SEO person, if somebody does a PBN right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Extremely hard. So
yeah,
and if people don't know what a PBN is, it's basically a public blog network. Matt's very successful with it, is they basically find expired domains, scrape, take the domain, flip it, turn it into a blog, and then fill it with content, and then slowly pour in, selling links, and they're trying to ride prior domain authority. So, you know, looking for those sites that don't renew and they, their credit card lapses or something and they don't catch it. And then you pick it up and flip it. So,
but I mean, the thing to understand is that major companies do this as well. It's not like this is some shady, I mean, it is a dark, shady corner of the internet, but massive companies do this as well, because you're allowed to create properties that you own and control, provide information, and link back to your own sites. There's nothing wrong with that as well. My favorite example is Wayfair. Wayfair owns like 5 different furniture companies, and they all link to each other. I did this one search. It was like Chase Lounge or something like that. And of the top 20 results, I think they had 6. They had like 2 on page 1 and like 4 on page 2 or 3. I was like, that's ridiculous. They're all the same company. So I mean, it's a practice that you're allowed to do. I mean, you're allowed to have multiple sites going after the same keyword, even if they're different companies, but they're owned by the same parent company. That's fine.
Yeah, I love the ones that, and I stay away from them when we're doing link building, with the ones that have advertise, like you were saying, they explicitly say advertise, and then then you go there and it's a clear dead giveaway that site's selling links, which obviously Google completely devalues at that point if their machines can
probably
figure it out.
Probably.
Yeah. So,
but I mean, they would be devalued because that's the purpose of the site, is just that. But if the site has other purposes and they're going to sell some native advertisement, that's
right.
It's a different story.
Yeah. Well, any more questions? Do you see anything pop up?
Nope.
I think I hit on a lot of them. Well, I appreciate it. I know we do have PageOptimizer Pro. I believe that we do have a deal set up with that. Again, I appreciate it. I know we've gotten a lot of good feedback on your course. Anything else that you want to plug, agency site, anything like that?
People can find me. I'm around.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it, man.
No, thanks for having me, guys. This was great. A lot of fun.
Yeah, excited to finally just chat SEO with you. So I'll send over that. I'd be interested to see. I'll send you over client report and have you take a look at it.
Yeah, right on.
Feel free to use it. You can hit the copy button.
Yeah, consider it stolen.
It took me forever to build. All right, I'll drop it over. Well, I appreciate it. Ad leakers, what's the next podcast, Luke? Do you know? Do we have that set up yet?
Yeah, we're getting a couple. One of them is Jack Paxton. Late April is when he's talking about like Instagram growth and content growth. And then
Chandler, I think, as well for creative.
Yeah, Chandler should be hopefully in April. We'll see, maybe May.
Okay, cool. Yep. So I appreciate it. Thank you, everyone. It's great talking to you, Kyle.
Thanks so much.
Yeah. Do you get to the US back ever?
When I come back to Thailand, I'd have to quarantine. So I don't think I'm going to do any travel until they let that go. And they're looking at maybe end of this year, beginning of next year. So,
okay. Do you guys have vaccines over there yet or no? Or is that like a thing yet?
No, but we don't really have any COVID. So they held off on purchasing the vaccine because they've done so where we are in Chiang Mai. I don't think they've had a case in 3-4 months.
Oh, wow.
There are a couple hot spots around in the area, but they're pretty well contained. But as a result, I don't think we're going to get the vaccine until like May, June, July, somewhere in there.
Mm-hmm. I was looking the other day because I was looking at something for some reason, just to see the cost of living over there. And I think I looked at the Philippines, but you can get it's crazy. You can get a 9,000 square foot mansion for $1,000. I was crazy. You can get for $6,000 a year. You can rent a 9,000 square foot mansion, basically costs nothing in US dollars. It's crazy.
Yeah. I think the Philippines might be a little less expensive than Thailand, but we live in a 3-bedroom house in a gated community. It's not the nicest in the area, but it's still, it's fine. I think we've got 2,200, 2,400 square feet, something like that. We're paying 600 USD a month.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And but what's crazier though?
Luke lives in California in Orange County. He's got a 1-bedroom shed and it's $10,000 a month.
The thing that
blows my mind. If I pop my head, I can see the ocean.
So we're obviously not Thai. So the heat. I mean, the one thing about Thailand is there's no getting around the heat. I mean, it is warm all the time. Just consider yourself sticky all the time. So we're running the ACs constantly, right? I think last month I'm pretty sure it was just 24 hours a day. And our entire electric bill for that house was about 80 USD.
Jeez, mine's 300 a month. Not even
Our
like
water bill was $6. That was,
God.
and then we don't pay for cable, but we do have high-speed internet, and our high-speed internet is $25 a month. And our local Thai phones, we're just like on a pay-as-you-go, basically, like kind of just topping up because we only use it for like banking and stuff like that. That costs, I want to say, $3-4 a month.
Can you practice law over there? Like, can you get certified if you have a law degree here in Thailand?
I doubt it. I haven't looked into that at all, but I'd be surprised if we can.
Interesting. I've never
You
been
speak
over there.
multiple languages?
No, I can speak restaurant Korean, like where I can order very effectively, and as you can see, I can find food pretty well. And so those kind of small talky things like, you know, directions, that kind of stuff I can do in Korean. I can read and write Korean pretty well too. Nice. Which is very helpful. Actually, what's really great about Korea is like restaurant names are usually like the meat or their main course. So it'd be just like chicken restaurant, you know, versus like next door is like squid balls restaurants. Like I think we're on chicken. You know, that's a lifesaver, like is learning how to read. Thai is, I don't think I'll ever be able to learn how to read Thai.
Yeah.
It's based off of Sanskrit. But my son though is learning how to read because he goes to a school that's bilingual, and it's phenomenal. He's writing his name in Thai, and I'm like, that's unbelievable.
That's awesome.
Is it pretty like, I guess I don't even know, I've never been over Thailand. Like in terms of like crime and stuff, is it very similar to the US, or is it like a lot less crime? Because there's
significantly less crime. There's no crime here. I mean, there's crime here, of course, but significantly less crime. The only thing that you have to watch out for is motorcycle accidents. Like people are just killing themselves left and right on their scooters. Like, because that's pretty. It's an odd thing. I think the best way to describe it is slow aggression. You can be as aggressive as you want if you're just going slowly. And so like you have these people that'll cut across like 4 lanes of traffic, but they do it at this like snail pace, and everyone's like, all right. Yeah. But yeah. You know, like if they were to dart across, people lose their minds, I'm sure. But it's because you did it slowly, it's like, all right, we'll give you that one. But scooter and motorcycle accidents are like super high. Traffic deaths are pretty high. Yeah. Like per capita, but health system here is fantastic. Anything that you would need, people do like medical tourism, that kind of thing. But also, like if you have like now that I've moved here and I moved with a family, a lot of people are paying me like, hey, so you were able to make it. You know, like some people have like maybe a medical condition that you need kind of checked on. Those doctors are here, and it's affordable and stuff like that. Any kind of leisure activity you're into is here. You know, whatever you're into is available, and there's a community for it. So it's really, really great.
I don't think I'm moving. I got 4 kids, so I'm stuck.
Think about it. The school that we send my son to is phenomenal. It's about $3,700 a semester is what it comes out to. I would think we're paying 3-4x easy in the US for the quality, the level of education it is. And they're obviously accredited by Thailand, but they're also IB accredited, which is the UK system, and they're also accredited in the US as well.
Do they teach it in US? Like they teach it in English?
So it's split. So there are 3 teachers in the classroom at all times. There's a native English speaking teacher. She's from the UK. There's a native Thai speaking teacher, and then they have a teaching assistant. And there are only 18 kids in there. So it's 1 teacher for 6 kids, which is unbelievable. And they also pride themselves that the kids spend more time outside than they do inside. So my little guy, he's just in 1st grade, but like they're looking at the life cycle of a plant. And so they actually had an area that they had to go plant their seed, and they had to tend to it and grow the plant and monitor it. And then they got it in a little cup and came home, like, and then we promptly killed it about 2 days later. We get talking about the death part of that life cycle. But like, that's the kind of experiences that he's having. And just like with this kind of environment of really it follows a Buddhist model in terms of respect for others, respect for yourself, respect for environment. And math is kind of like 12th on the list. But I was like, I prefer that we build a better human, at this stage of his life. And then but then on top of that, because they have the accreditation in the US and the UK, they can't just like not teach them. Like it's still an amazingly quality education, but yeah.
Cool. Someday I'll get over there. I had the opportunity to go and I stayed back and worked. When a company I was working with went on vacation, I was like, no, somebody's got to hold the fort down. And I didn't go because I didn't want to travel, and I regret it ever since. So
yeah, if you make it over, so Chiang Mai is all the way up. It's all the way up. So it's only about an hour and a half. It's about an hour from Bangkok, but on a flight. But like driving would take forever. It's like a 8-9 hour drive, and trains I wouldn't do. But yeah, if you hit Bangkok, think about it. Come on up, see the community. We'll take you out to some good food.
For sure.
Yeah, I see you guys always to get together. I know Matt just built a pretty sweet house. It looked like it was a couple year project.
His house is very nice. Yeah, very, very nice. He actually lives 5 minutes away from me.
Cool.
So crazy.
It's kind of crazy too how they do it because it's so different than how we build houses here. It's just
his biggest thing was like, you have to watch them work. Otherwise, it's just not happening. Like somebody has to actually be there and watch the work happen. Otherwise, it's going to take a while.
Forever. It seemed like it took forever though. Like just from his post, didn't it take like over a year or something?
Yeah, and I think that was pretty quick by standards.
Yeah, like here, they build a house in 2 months anymore.
Well, knew his wife. She knows what she's doing, so she, I think she was a big driver of getting that done. So I think having her around was probably a huge help in cutting down the time on getting that completed.
Yep, if I ever get over there, I'll look you up. Well, I appreciate it. I could talk all day about Thailand, so that's probably the only one.
Good stuff.
Well, I appreciate all the time. Thank you for everyone that tuned in. We'll get this uploaded to the podcast, and we will see you guys in a few weeks. Appreciate it, Kyle. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right,
Appreciate
guys.
it.
Yep, later.
See y'all.